Ready. Play.
Good afternoon, good evening, good morning, wherever you are tuning in from, wherever you are in the world and whatever time it happens to be there. Today we have a special show. We're going to be speaking to Marco, who is to my left, to my right. I don't know quite where you are. I think to my left on the screen. How are you doing today, Marco?
Good morning. Thank you for inviting me in this nice chat. And we talk about a lot of tennis, in this case, Italian tennis, maybe.
Italian tennis primarily, and with a particular focus on Matteo Berrettini. Marco, of course, you are a journalist, but tell us a bit more about you before we get into Berrettini.
Okay, I'm a tennis journalist since, I think quite for a while. And I write every all on a site that's called Live Tennis, livetennis.it. That is one of the most important sites in Italy. And I have a collaboration with the Italian Tennis Federation too during the last 4 or 5 years. And I love tennis. I'm really a sort of tennis addict since I was young. I was a player when I was young, very young. Then I broke a leg when I was 14, so I abandoned any dreams of becoming a really good tennis player. But I keep on following tennis, and with the passion of writing and with this great love for tennis, I became a journalist. So I follow the international and national tennis during all the years. This is the site, perfect.
Yeah, exactly.
And I hope that we can grow and do every year a better site, involving more and more the passionate in Italy.
And Marco, as well, you were saying to me off air, you were a little bit concerned about your English, but let me tell you now, it's infinitely better than my Italian, and probably most of the audience is Italian. So you're doing great, by the way. Listen, Marco, you've also written a couple of books, including one on today's principal subject. Tell us a bit about your Berrettini book.
Okay, the book, this one, we can traduce in English Berrettini, the forza del pensiero, can translate in the power of mind, because this is not a classical biography. I think it will make no sense to have a biography, to write a biography on a tennis player that is playing at his best level just for 4 years, not so long.
Mm-hmm.
So this is a book I wrote with my friend Valentina Clemente, the tennis journalist too. And we try to describe the mentality, the process of Berrettini of becoming such a good tennis player, and the mental strength, but not only the strength, his sort of philosophy for life in sport and in tennis, because Berrettini is very well known abroad, in Italian obviously, but abroad, as this really nice guy, beautiful man, with such powerful tennis, but he is really an incredible person. Talking to him, knowing his story, his family, his journey from becoming not such a talented player when he was young, he was not considered a phenomenal. No, not at all. A lot of technical and trainers did not consider him a great talent, but he grew step by step. Working a lot on his physique, but a lot on his mind, with his coach, that is Vincenzo Santopadre. This is a former top 10 Italian player, not so good, but with a great hand and a lot of good feeling about life. This is the most important thing that I hope we can present to the reader of this book. The Berrettini as a player, but above all as a person. His way to see life, sport, be a sport player, be a personality, but always remaining a good person, very, very in contact with his family, with his background, with his past. He's a really important, interesting person. When you talk to him, when you listen to him in a press conference, it's not his words are never as a case. I don't find the correct word in English. Sometimes he surprised you with his words, because he go very deep in his thoughts. even
Okay.
with the press, and it is quite strange because generally a press conference a lot of boring. We listen many times the same things. No, he without questions he go very very deep in his thoughts, and this is very interesting. He works since the beginning of his career with a mental coach that is a very nice person called Stefano Massari, and they start this work together every day talking about. They don't talk about tennis. They talk, for example, for a film that he has seen the night before, or if we had a good dinner with friends, or if we had some thought about a war, about something that was happening in the world. He's a very 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 deep person in this in his mentality, and we try to present this part of him because really not all the people know him, and I think that he become a very good tennis player, above all thanks to this mentality, the way he see life and live his life.
And this is a picture of Berrettini's mental coach. I think I've got on the screen here. I wasn't familiar with him. Massari, you say, right?
Yeah, Stefano Massari. Yeah.
And how long have they been working together for? Do you know?
I think they start from the very beginning of the career of Berrettini. I think in 2017 or something like that. They worked together from when he was not a famous player, when he started to play challenger and so on. And this part of his training is for him, when we describe in the book, as important as the part on court and on and with the physical part of the process, because for him to stay calm, focused during the match is as important as to have his big forehand or his big serve. And it's correct, completely correct, because all we know how important it is to have a good matches in tournament, to be able to stay focused, to stay strong, and to overcome any difficulty, any trouble, and any problem during the match.
Tell us a bit about his coach. I think today more than ever, with so much tennis on our TV and on social media, we are looking a bit more at the coaches. We've got super fans out there that are getting angry with the coach rather than the player, if you like, almost football-like. Plus, on our TV screens, at the end of every point, they're going to the coach in the box. Now, Berrettini's coach gets the same attention, but I don't think he's got quite the same profile as a Carlos Moya or Goran Ivanisevic, for example.
When Vincenzo Santopadre stopped to play tennis, he became a classical tennis coach in an important club of Roma, but he was not the idea of becoming an international coach. Berrettini moved to the coach where his family was based, to the coach of Santopadre when he was 14, and they start this journey. And it's quite strange, the very first year of Berrettini on court, because Berrettini lived to play tennis and passed to swimming. But he has a brother called Jacopo, that he was a quite talented guy, but he was not successful in being an important tennis professional player, that convinced him to return to play tennis, to play together. Because they did, no, come with me, we play together and this. And so Matteo is, okay, I'll be back playing tennis. And in this, we write this on the book. When Matteo decided to be back on tennis and leave swimming, he decided to do it for real, to do, okay, let's do the best I can. And Santopadre find these two brothers, Berrettini, Jacopo and Matteo, in the club, and see how Matteo was good. He has a real perspective to become a very strong player. But when he was young, he was not so big, so tall, so strength. They work a lot on his physical, and it was a very difficult journey, because he had a lot of injury. He injured ankles, he injured knees, back, shoulder, everything, almost everything. But Santopadre still keep on him, still focus on him, step by step, very, very slowly, working at the same time on his mind, on his body, on his technique. There is a very good thing that Adriano Panatta, the former Italian champion of Roland Garros in 1976, when he saw Berrettini was, I think, 16 or something like that, said, Matteo, you will arrive to serve 2020 kilometers hours. And Matteo said, you are crazy. I will never get this kind of serve. But they was working on every part of his game very slowly, with no hurry, with giving not so many importance to the result as a junior player. If you see the junior career of Berrettini, there is not so great result. He played the slams, the junior slam, but he didn't was so successful. But they stay on the process. They believe that he has all that was necessary to become a great player, and so we have to give a lot of credit to Santo Padre to believe in Matteo, follow him even if when he was injured. They stay calm, they stay tranquil, and step by step they arrive to the Wimbledon final.
Yes, indeed they did. That was, up till now, would be obviously the peak of Berrettini's career. Listen, let's get into Berrettini a bit more in the modern day. As you say, he got to that Wimbledon final. Let's start the story there, if you like, from now, and we'll look at his year this year. What was the feeling regarding that Wimbledon final? Was it an opportunity missed, or was it just an excellent sign that he's been progressing? He had a really, really consistent 2021, where I think he made the quarterfinals or deeper at every single major. Yeah. And Wimbledon, of course, he wins the first set. Is there a feeling of disappointment or just pride, do you think, regarding that result?
Well, in Italy, there was for Italian tennis was an incredible result, because he was the first player to reach a Wimbledon final. So it was an incredible result. But Matteo, during the presentation of the trophy, said, "This is the start of my career." So for him, it is a very important result. But my career starts now. I have to progress, and I want to lead. I want the trophy and not the second one. So I think that Berrettini, in this moment of his career, it was the peak of his career. But I think that he has the ability and the possibility to win Wimbledon. I think because in this moment there are not so many players as good as him to play on grass. For example, this year he was very, very unfortunate, because we remember that he played 2 tournaments on grass before Wimbledon and won both, Stuttgart and Queens. So he arrived at Wimbledon, I think, as the real second favorite beyond Djokovic. And he got COVID, and so he was unable to play. But I would like to see him play, because maybe it was him again in final against Djokovic and on Kyrgios, for example. And with an important thing of Berrettini that I've seen during all his career, he is a guy that is very, very quick to learn from his defeats. When he loses to an important player, the second time they play together, he adds something. He's a person that is very smart on court. He really learns with his defeats. And in the book, with the very first part of the book, we wrote that for him, to lose is more important than to win, because he considers his journey as just started. He is in the first step. He wants to be a real champion, and he said, when I lose, I have inside so many fire that I want to be better the second time that I play with the player when I lose to him. So he see the match again, he study the match, he study why he loses the match, and every time he was better in the second match against an opponent. So this is one of the best quality of Matteo. So I think that we will see again at Wimbledon, and if he will be healthy, he will be in the future. He will be one of the real contender of this incredible trophy.
Yeah. Listen, I think that's a really interesting point you make about losing, and it's a part of the sport, and it can be used correctly for motivation as well, and learning from the defeats. These are actually all things that Roger Federer, I remember saying as well, that arguably or certainly one of the most successful players ever to pick up a racket. He said that losing is a huge, it's a part of the sport, and it's something you have to recognize. It can happen. It will happen. And by the way, I'm glad you mentioned it as well, because I've only ever written one book, by the way. I'm not quite on your level in terms of writing books, but I've got a book and it's called Even the Defeats, and it's about football. And more specifically, Alex Ferguson. And basically, the premise of the book is that despite being Britain's most successful coach, the way he dealt with and the way he learned from losing is a very important factor. And that's absolutely the same for any sport. And it doesn't matter if you're the most, in a way, I would actually argue that the most successful people in sport ever are the ones that deal with the defeat in the best manner, learning from it, using it as motivation, seeing it as a lesson, if you like. Anyway, I've digressed a little bit. The problem that Berrettini, of course, has had is that in terms of the last 18 months, if you like, since that Wimbledon final, his ranking has slipped a bit. But as you said, very unfortunate. Let's begin with so post Wimbledon, of course. I think he gets to the US Open quarterfinal where he loses to Djokovic again. In fact, last year I think he only lost to Djokovic and Nadal at all the majors. In fact, he was injured for Australia. He had to pull out against Tsitsipas, didn't he? I'm talking about last 2021.
Yeah,
and
21.
Then he gets to the quarterfinals at the French Open, loses to Djokovic again in Wimbledon and again in New York. But 2021 has not gone to plan, but most of it has been out of his hands. In January, he beats Alcaraz, of course, in January.
Semi-final in Melbourne, loses to Nadal. Semi-final, it was the very first Italian to reach semi-final Australian Open.
Yeah, right. And so let's just have a quick, do you remember anything about the Alcaraz match? Because that was an incredible match, right?
Yeah. Alcaraz, maybe when we find in the draw Italian players with Sinner who beat him Wimbledon too, and in the final of Umag too, Alcaraz was beaten by Sinner. And it was a really incredible match because Alcaraz was growing it was impressive in that match. It was impressive. He was so young, so talented, with an intensity. He's so complete. He has everything to dominate the sport. He's a nice guy. He's really is everything that a tennis player can dream. But in this match, Berrettini was really impressive, not only with his serve. He make a lot of decisive points with his serve, but staying calm, because in many parts of the match, Alcaraz was overwhelming, really. But Berrettini was so smart, waiting that the storm passed, and when he has the possibility, he put a great shot. In fact, if I remember well, the match was decided with a tiebreaker in the fifth, if I remember well, and exactly. Berrettini was unplayable on his serve, and he plays, if I remember well, two incredible backhand back. He moves so wide Alcaraz on his side, and then 2 foot forward, strong backhand, boom, and he takes 2 important points. So this is really how a player can be strong mentally, to stay calm, stay focused. In that match, Alcaraz played better than Berrettini, but Berrettini was there, was waiting, and when he has a chance, he takes it. So this is really a demonstration of how Berrettini is strong mentally. Alcaraz is 10,000 better player than Berrettini, but Berrettini was there and take a chance.
Of course, Berrettini ends up getting to the quarterfinals where he's to meet one of the greats, of course, of the sport in Rafael Nadal. I think as well with Nadal somehow manages to find Berrettini's backhand a lot more easily than other players. And I remember the first 2 sets of that match. It was just like rally, breakdown of the Berrettini backhand, and pretty much for 2.5 sets or 2 sets, that's how it was. What were your thoughts on this match?
Well, Nadal will be always maybe the worst player that Berrettini can play with, it, because the real weakness of Berrettini is the backhand side. he has not so bad backhand, but he had some troubles to bring the ball when it's very high.
Yeah.
Berrettini play a quite good backhand on grass because the ball bounces low, so he can get with a good timing, enter in the ball, and uses very well the back too. But if you do a back with Nadal, Nadal is so quick, so fast to make two stop or forward in the field, and boom, he exploded his forehand, and the point is basically over. And obviously, as Nadal make thousands of times against Federer, he punches on the left side of Berrettini, and Berrettini is really in big trouble. I don't know really if Berrettini could improve a lot of his backhand. And in his thoughts, and we write this on the book, in his opinion, he is not a so bad backhand, but in reality, he's not so good compared to his incredible forehand and to his serve. Sometimes in Italy, when ex-players, coach talk about Berrettini, they say he has to work hard on his backhand. But sometimes they say it's better to have a player with two incredible weapons, has forehand and serve, and a weakness, has a backhand not so good. It's better that he try to improve a lot of backhand, or it's better to stay the best is best with forehand and serve. This is a discussion. I really don't know, but I think that sometimes when you have two incredible weapons as him, it's better to stay in this way, to stay focused in his strength, than to lose his focus and to put all the work in the backhand, maybe don't reaching to have a very big one on his left side. So tennis is a sport, very strange sport, because sometimes an opponent have a weapon that put you in serious trouble, even if you are better than him. And in this case, Berrettini will be always in trouble with lefty players that have really good backhand. Djokovic, for example, is incredible in his backhand. So in this part of the game, he will be always suffering. But he have to obviously work to improve. But I think not so much with a straight forehand to give a lot of strength, but with his back. Because if we work a lot of back, it can cut the ball, and so take times to be back in the center of the court, or to move with on the left side, and then to fire a very strong forehand. This is a very subtle things, because it depends a lot of situation in court, obviously. But obviously, the backhand is the real weakness of Matteo, with the physique too, because of all his injuries. This is the two part that are the words of Berrettini's play: the physical part with all his injuries, and obviously backhand.
And really, injuries and unfortunate incidents really has played a large part in his 2022. Moving on from Australia, just trying to think, he must have missed the French Open. Did he miss the French Open through injury?
Yeah.
What injury did he have there?
Hand. Yeah, the problem to his hand. Basically, he played his last match, if I remember well, in Indian Wells, and then he stopped. He have a surgery to his hand, and maybe to be back on Roland Garros was too early. He preferred to skip it and go directly on grass to prepare at his best Wimbledon. And it was a good decision. He won the two tournaments before Wimbledon.
He did. In fact, I would say this year on grass, he was looking even more ominous than last year when he got to the final. I know that some people were going into this year's Wimbledon with Nadal as their second favorite. We all know who the favorite is and was, of course, and rightly so. Some people had Nadal as their second favorite, also understandable. But for me and many other observers, I had Berrettini as the second favorite. Of course, Berrettini and Nadal were in one half of the draw. Djokovic was in the other. Yeah. It looked like Djokovic was going to get to the final, and then it would be a Berrettini-Nadal shootout in the semi. Things didn't work out that way, and I was at Wimbledon this year. I don't know if you didn't go to Wimbledon, right? You said
no.
So I was at Wimbledon this year, and I do remember that news breaking about Berrettini. I think there had been one or two other COVID cases. I know Bautista Agut was one of the COVID cases, but Bautista Agut played his first round match and then tested positive afterwards. But I think it was just hours before Berrettini was going to take to the court to play Christian Garin, I think. And Garin ends up getting to the quarterfinals. And I spoke to Christian, by the way, at the tournament as well. And I said, Christian, how many grass courts do they have in Chile? And he said, none.
Nothing.
And I said, well, you're doing well. But also, I think we have to realize that he was the biggest beneficiary, if you like, and along with maybe Nick Kyrgios, who makes the final from that COVID situation. So I remember the story going around Wimbledon, like Berrettini, what? Berrettini's out. So this is transforming certainly the 2022 Wimbledon and arguably to some extent careers and history, because I think that he was close to Djokovic, but not close enough in 2021. 4 sets, winning the first set, gets away from him at the beginning of the second. And when Djokovic gets that bit of momentum, it's very difficult to stop. But I think Berrettini's form, I mean, he won Queens, right? And he won another grass court tournament in Germany, I believe.
Stuttgart.
Yeah, Stuttgart as well. Beat Andy Murray, I think, in the final. So, I think he was looking even better this year. I don't think he wasn't. I think he won Queens, maybe without dropping a set. But it was very impressive. And by the way, let's just have a little moment for the human side. I don't know if you're aware, but this year in the UK, we but she retired from TV work, Sue Barker. And she's sort of a legend of television in the UK. She's been working on the BBC for many years. She also won the French Open title as a player. But this year was her last year working at Wimbledon and also doing the on-court interviews, etc. At Queens, I think it was immediately after the match finished. Of course, Berrettini's with the microphone with Sue Barker, and he says, "Hang on a second. I think we also need to say something about you and your goodbye from the sport, and I just want to recognize that." And it was a really nice touch from Berrettini.
Yeah. He's a really good person, really. I don't think this because he's Italian, because he's our best player, but it's a really, really nice person. I think it's a person, if you go for a pizza, for a dinner together, you enjoy a lot your night, because it's a really, really interesting person. He likes to joke, he likes to talk about politics, about life, about books, about film. He's a sort of film addicted. He loves Tarantino's film, for example. So he has a lot of interest. He read a lot of Hermann Hesse book, because he likes to explore life. He's very interesting to people, and the thing you said now about Becker, the most perfectly the person who he is, because he's a very, very person who's connected with people and with the world. There are a lot of very good play, for example, Tsitsipas, that lives in a sort of bubble. He thinks a lot just of himself. No, Berrettini is very connected to people, to the world, to his friends. He liked to walk and at night in New York City just to see how the people live. He's a very interesting people. He's interesting to life and to person.
I'm glad you mentioned the New York thing, because there's a pizzeria, I think, in New York. I remember in 2019 when he got to the semifinals that year in New York, when there was a clip on Eurosport about his friendship, if you like, that he developed with a restaurant owner in New York. And now we see every US Open, we see him in Berrettini's box. In fact, we've got him on the screen here with a long beard there. And this must be from a year or two ago, because, of course, there's Berrettini's ex-girlfriend in the picture. But yeah, I just remember the guy with the long beard, because I remember this little clip on Eurosport in 2019. It was just before the semi-final against Nadal. And it was like one of these sort of character things. And it showed this guy, this restaurant guy, and Berrettini. And now he's in Berrettini's box every year in New York.
Yeah, they become friends. They're just a sort of Italian scaramanzia. I don't remember how we say, just to believe that if at every match he won with this guy in his box, you have to be in my box in the next one.
A lucky charm.
Okay, yes, but in general, he really loved to stay with people. He loves to stay with people, to meet new people, to have experience. He's a very curious person. So he's a very interesting person to talk with and to spend time. So this is normal for him to share his thoughts, his emotion, to meet people, to go out. And so it's Berrettini with this great smile, with enjoying life. It's really a very good manifesto for Italian sport and Italian people. Really, he's a really, really good Italian person.
My thoughts on Berrettini's year 2022 has been disappointing, but mostly for the injuries, the COVID situation on the eve of his best chance at winning a major. So most of the things have been out of his hands. I think the one on-court disappointment for me would be the US Open.
Yeah,
I
with Ruud.
thought that I thought that with Nadal going out to Tiafoe, Medvedev going out to Kyrgios, Djokovic, of course, not being there, Zverev injured too. You know, there were not many contenders, if you like. He was also on the opposite side of the draw to Alcaraz and Sinner.
Yeah.
So I thought to myself, once you know Medvedev goes out in particular, and Kyrgios too went out in the quarterfinals, I was thinking there's a really good chance for Berrettini at least to get to the final here. And I was really surprised at how comfortably Casper Ruud won that match.
Yeah, it was maybe the worst defeat of his year. And we have to say one thing. Berrettini has this very massive body. He needs to get the form. He needs to play several matches. And the tournament before US Open played quite badly. He needs time to get in his best shape. So he was not able during US Open to find the real rhythm. He was complaining about his serve, about the movement of his feet. During all the tournament, he played quite badly. We follow obviously every match during this tournament, and we have a lot of fear facing Ruud that he could lose. And in fact, he lose because he was never able to get his best rhythm with his strength, and he was not so fast on court. Really, he spent a very bad second part of the season, and we see how he finished. He lost to Musetti the final in Naples, the new ATP 2050, and in Davis Cup he was put in the last moment in field, but he plays purely because he's not a double player too. But the defeat with Ruud, I think it was the worst defeat of his year. And Ruud is another player that is suffer. He loses another match in Rome during the Internazionale d'Italia. And if you call to Berrettini, which is one of the defeats that you really hate the most? He loves the tournament of Rome, and this defeat against Ruud, he really never overcome it at all. He's an opponent that is suffered, maybe for his great rhythm, for his strength, for a way to punch his hard the ball on his backhand. But really, this defeat in this year US Open against Ruud was really, really disappointed. We never had a moment during the match when we sense he can really turn the match on his side. And this is the worst thing, because I think that the best Berrettini could beat Ruud, but in this match he really had no chance.
Indeed. But I was just surprised at how easy the result was, at least for Casper, and it probably wasn't until the third set that it got interesting. Anyway, listen, 2022 will be obviously put down as being a bit of a disappointing year, but as we already highlighted, mostly for the injuries, etc. What about 2023, Marco? I want to get your thoughts on that. What would be a good year? What should Berrettini be aiming for?
He starts defending the semifinal of the Australian Open. It will not be easy at all. For the same ideas, he needs to get rhythm. So he will play this exhibition in Arabia in these days. Then we'll go down under in Australia, and we hope that we could make a very good tournament, but it will not be easy to defend this one. Then we hope the best important thing for him is to stay healthy. This is the most important thing. And we write on the book that we talk with many professionals of this sector. For example, Stefano Baraldo, that was physician trainer of Flavia Pennetta, for example, during her career. And he said that Berrettini maybe will suffer during all his career some problem, because the most important problem of the Berrettini physique is that he has his leg quite thin and the upper part of his body very strong but heavy. So we have this is not so well defined, and this is something that he can work anymore on this. He is in this way. I think that for him will be very, very important to arrive in a best shape on grass, trying to really to be a real contender at Wimbledon. But for this, I think it's important that he could have a quite good clay season, not just to win tournament, but to have continuity, to have to play every week without problem and arriving on grass with his best shape and try to give his best at Wimbledon. I think that the two main focus for Berrettini in 2023 will be defend Australian Open, stay healthy, and arrive at Wimbledon in his best shape. I think this is the two main goals for him, obviously. And he would like to be back, obviously, in Turin in the ATP finals. But this will be to be at least number 8 in the world. So it will be to make very, very strong in slams. This is the most important. And Berrettini in his career has never won till now one of the 9 best player of ATP, the Master 1000. So I think to win Rome, or to win, I don't know, Indian Wells, Miami, one of this one could be a very good result for him. But especially Australian Open and Wimbledon.
Maybe Madrid as well. I mean, he's got to the final there, I think, a year or two ago. He's pretty good on all surfaces, but you would possibly think that maybe clay would be, I don't think he'll never win a French Open, but if you're going to win a clay court tournament, I think Madrid is the one. Listen, before I let you go, Marco, I do want to just highlight this other book that you've written as well, or co-written, I should say. Tell us a bit about this.
Okay, this is traduced in English, Racket and Habits. It's a very curious book, not so big. I wrote with Marcella Marcone, that is a physio, I would say, a psychoanalyst. And we talk about how important it for sport player and tennis in particular to work on habits, to work on routine, because there are little things, but they are very important for players and tennis players to work well, to stay calm and focus on court. But we all know all the routine of Nadal, for example, but every tennis player have his routine, his things. And so we try to develop this concept about the importance of routine, of habits, of stay calm, stay focused on court, with many example of tennis players that are playing now of the past. So it's a small book, but I think it's still I think people can enjoy read it, because it's a book with no time. So I think it's good every year.
It's a timeless book. Yes, indeed. Yeah. I mean, the mental side of sport, and especially an individual sport where you've got to keep your nerve, like tennis. I think it's very interesting you mentioned the routine element. I mean, I know that Rafa Nadal has been talking at various points about these habits that he has, if you like. And many people thought perhaps at first it was about superstition. He said, I'm not superstitious at all. It's all about routine. Yeah. Because outside of the court, he's not superstitious. He's not doing these things and stuff like that. But on the court, he said it's just great to have this sort of constant thing to keep the focus.
Yeah, there are things that makes you calm, tranquil. I think that I'm doing this, I'm having my routine, but it's just for the preparation. Every single player, when approach a match, have a preparation that is basically the same from here to here, basically. And it's something very important, because the mind works well when do the same things, because it relaxes you, focus him, listen music, stretching, cool down, have a shower, eating something, little things, but are important. Every player has different, so it's quite curious to discover every player how approach the match and live his day, the day of the match, but training too, but the day of the match is the most important. And after match, because many players have a lot of routines when they go out of court too.
Exactly, indeed. And listen, Marco, I just want to say a big thank you for coming on today, talking about obviously your book Rackets and Habits there, which is available at least in Italian on Amazon, as is your other book, of course, on Matteo Berrettini, that came out this year, right?
Yeah. Just actually 3 weeks ago, so it's very, very fresh.
Yeah, I could see how fresh it was, mainly because of the picture involved in that. It was a picture from this year's, I think, Australian Open, I think. So it was. I could see that he was wearing the Hugo Boss outfit that he's been wearing this year and from the beginning of this year. So I was like, oh, that must be fairly fresh. Listen, Marco, I just want to say a big thank you for coming along.
Thank you to you. It was a pleasure to be here.
And for the rest of you, thank you for stopping by. If you enjoyed this video, make sure you hit that like button. Don't forget to subscribe and click that notification bell so you don't miss out on all things tennis.